Hello, this is Mrs. Brown, and today we're going to look at solving ax squared plus bx plus c. This is similar to some of the things that we've done before, except that now the coefficient of x is not 1. In the previous lesson, it was 1, so we have to do things a little bit different. So my suggestion is to write down these notes so that you have them, because we're going to use a little bit different procedure, okay, to make it a little bit simpler. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the product of a times c. So the coefficient of x squared and the c. Then we're going to look for factors of that product that add together to give me b. That's very similar to what we did before, except that we didn't have to multiply a times c because a was 1, because the coefficient was 1. So we didn't have to do that before. Okay. Then we're going to rewrite it, though. This is the different part. So that it's 4 terms, and these are the factors that we found that worked. Okay, then we can factor by grouping. So if we can get it to here, we can easily use factoring by grouping to make it into 2 binomials. Once you have it into the 2 binomials, it's really easy to solve, making it equal to 0. We've practiced that in previous lessons. But the goal here is to be able to get to 2 binomials that you multiply together. Okay. The other thing you need to know is that not all polynomials here, not all quadratics are actually going to factor with easy numbers, okay? Because we'll look in later chapters about what to do about those. But we have what we call a prime polynomial, and basically it's a polynomial that you can't write in like 2 neat little binomials that have integers as the numbers, okay? So when we look at this, here's an example. So 3 times 5 is 15. So that's my a times c. So then I do what I did before about finding factors of 15. 1 times 15, 3 times 5. And then I have to add to see if I can get b. Well, this is 16, and this one comes out to 8, neither of which is 2. So I can't write this as 2 binomials easily with just integers, so whole numbers and their opposites. So this is what we would call a prime polynomial, because I can't just factor it easily like I did with some of the previous lessons, and I'll be doing with the ones in this lesson. So if you try to factor and it won't work, it doesn't necessarily mean you're doing something wrong. It could be that it's a prime polynomial, and so you would write prime, okay? So hopefully, again, if you need to, you paused and wrote this down. And then what we're going to do is look at some examples, because, again, the easiest way to understand this is to start to look at the examples and see what's actually happening. So let's take 2x squared plus 13x plus 15, okay? If I want to be able to factor this, the first thing I'm going to do is a times c. So a is the coefficient, remember. C is the constant, and b is the coefficient of the middle term of just x, okay? So a times c would be 2 times 15, or 30. Now, once I've done that, I'm going to do what I did before. I'm going to list the factors of 30. So 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, and 5 times 6. And I'm looking for one that adds together to give me b. So if you look, that's 31, 2 plus 15, 17. 3 plus 10, however, is 13, and that equals what b is. So these are the numbers I need, okay? So what I'm going to then do is I'm going to rewrite this using these numbers. So 3x and 10x. So instead of 13x, I just broke it up into those 2 factors, the 3x and the 10x, so that I have my 4 terms. Now I can factor by grouping, okay? So that means we're going to treat it like 2 different problems. I'm going to look for the GCF here, the GCF here. I'm going to pull those out, and then we'll be able to write our polynomials, our 2 binomials, okay? So when we take a look here, the coefficients only have a common factor of 1, so we don't worry about those. But we have x squared and x, which means our GCF is x. So I'm going to divide out x from both of these. X squared divided by x is just x, so it's 2x plus 3x divided by x divided by x is 1, and 1 times 3 is 3. Okay. I look here, the coefficient is 10 and the constant is 5. They have a common factor of 5. There's an x here, but not an x here, so I can't remove x from the problem. So I'm just going to divide by 5. 10x divided by 5 is 2x, plus 15 divided by 5 is 3. Okay. Now, remember that with factoring by grouping, once I've gotten to this point, these two should match. If they match, that becomes the GCF of this problem, and I can remove that. I can pull that out of the problem, and what's left goes in my other binomial. So x and plus 5. And so 2x squared plus 13x plus 15 factors into 2x plus 3 times x plus 5. Okay. If I were going to solve it, I would then make it equal to 0, and I would find the roots by making this one equal to 0 and this one equal to 0. And once I've done that, I subtract 5 here, so x equals -5. Or here, I subtract 3 from both sides, so 2 times x equals -3. Divide by 2, so x equals -3/2. So those are my two roots. Okay. Once I have my two binomials, I just set each of those to 0 because, of course, remember that when you come out with a product of 0, one of these two at least has to be 0. And so that's what we use to find the answer. Okay. Let's take a look at another example of how to deal with a little bit more complicated problem. Okay. So let's say I had 4x squared, I have to erase that, minus 14x plus 6. Okay. So what I'm going to start by doing is multiplying a times c, which is 4 times 6. So my product is 24. I'm going to look for factors of 24. So 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. And then I'm looking for two factors that add together to give me b. Remember, b is the middle term. Okay. Notice that c is positive, so this is still a sum. Okay. So when I look at this, 2 plus 12 is 14, which is what I'm looking for. So I'm going to break that up, except notice because this is minus, they're both are going to be minus when I'm doing this. So I get 4x squared minus 2x minus 12x plus 6. Okay, so again, they're both minus because it has to be -2 and -12 to get to -14 when I add them together. Okay, so now I'm going to group. Okay, I'm going to make this plus a minus to make it a little bit easier. Because remember, adding a negative is the same as subtracting a positive. Okay, so when I take a look at this, I've got a common factor of 2 between 4 and 2, so I remove that. I've got an x squared and an x, so I can remove x. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. X squared divided by x is x. Minus 2x divided by 2x is 1. Okay? Now, notice how this is a minus. This is going to be a plus. So this is where I want to remove a negative number so that this switches to a minus sign, because I need this to match what I'm going to get over here. So when I do my GCF, I'm going to make it a negative. So between 12 and 6, the GCF would be 6. Okay, so I'm taking out -6. That's going to make this one positive and this one negative so that I will match what I have here. So -12 divided by -6 is 2, so it's 2x. And then 6 divided by -6 is -1, which is why I get the -1 there. Okay, so now looking at it once again, I've got 2x minus 1, 2x minus 1. So that is my new GCF I can factor out. And then I'm left with here 2x and a -6. Okay, and that would be factoring by grouping. I've just factored this trinomial into two binomials. Okay, let's look at one more example and then we'll call it good. Okay, again, it's putting together a couple of different ideas that you've learned about into applying it to this new situation. Okay, so when I take a look here, again, I want to start by doing a times c, and a times c is going to be 4 times 10 because this is a and this is c, which is 40. I want to look for my factors of 40. 1 times 40, 2 times 20, 4 times 10, 5 times 8. This is a sum, so I'm looking for which pair of factors add together to give me 22. And 2 plus 20 is 22, so therefore that's going to be the 2 that I want to use. Okay, because remember this one's B, and this one's A, and this one's C. So I'm going to rewrite it as 4x squared plus, okay, I've got 2x plus 20x plus 10. Okay, so again, I'm putting those information down. I broke B into 2x and 20x because 2 plus 20 is 22. And now I can factor by grouping. Okay. So when I look here, this is going to be between 4 and 2 is 2. I've got an x squared and an x, so I can factor out 2x. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, and x squared divided by x is x, plus 2x divided by 2x is just 1. Looking here, I don't have a variable, so I'm just looking for the common factor, the greatest common factor of 20 and 10, which is 10, so I remove 10. 20x divided by 10 is 2x, and 10 divided by 10 is just 1. Okay, and now since I have that common factor, greatest common factor here, I can factor that out, so it's 2x plus 1. And then what's left over goes in the other binomial. So 2x plus 10. If I want to solve it, again, I'm going to make it equal to 0. And then from there, I'm just going to make each of the binomials equal to 0 because one of them has to be 0 if it's going to work out. If the product's 0, one of these two has to be 0. So I subtract 1 and divide by 2. So x equals a negative half. I subtract 10 and divide by 2, so x equals negative 5. So again, going through this process, factoring it into two binomials, and then you can easily solve. Okay, I hope this helps, and I will talk to you soon. Have a fabulous day.